Brother, good. Thanks for joining us. We're having the time of our lives here, Phil, because I can only imagine what you're going through, and all of us here on the island, those up in the burbs surrounding the center of the world, look to our leaders, both politically and you as well, sir. And how's it going on your end?
Well, I will say that the leaders here in New York, the leaders here at MTA, and the leaders on Long Island Railroad, and that includes my labor partners, are working collaboratively, keeping an open line of communication. And I think that goes a long way to being able to support the men and women of the Long Island Railroad here, and letting them know that we're doing this together, and that we're doing this to not only help Long Island, which is a hot spot, New York City, which is a hot spot, fight the pandemic, but we're doing this to make sure that while we're doing it, we want to keep them as safe as possible, keep our riders as safe as possible. And, as we've been talking about, the workforce here, they're heroic, and they are doing heroic things to move other heroes that are helping fight the pandemic here.
And that's the name of your campaign, I heard, that you guys are releasing, I think just today or yesterday, the Heroes Transporting Heroes campaign. What is that?
Well, we've always seen the tremendous effort that our workforce here does, even before this virus. During storms, during times where we're telling people to stay in because it's not safe to be out, our workforce is out doing things, working in the infrastructure, working on the property, and they're doing a tremendous amount of work. And now we are catering to a smaller group of ridership, less than 10% of our ridership. But those folks are essential workers. They're healthcare workers. They're grocery store clerks, utility workers, including our own labor workforce. And we're moving some of the most important trips of our life. And, the heroes that are doing it are the men and women of Long Island Railroad. And it's a testament to their dedication, a testament to their courage, because we're all battling this virus, and we all have the same fears of what this virus can do to us, and yet they report day in and day out, and they're working 24/7. Couldn't be more proud of what they're doing.
I mean, I can only imagine what goes through their mind, right? So let's say a guy's a conductor. He's interfacing with the rest of the public on these trains. The trains are as clean as they can be, ever have been, and yet he goes up to somebody in scrubs. And if I see someone in scrubs, I give him a thumbs up like, hey, you're a hero, but at the same time, stay away from me. I don't know what you got, and maybe you don't either. What's going through their minds when they go home to their wife or husband and children every night after being exposed to the most vulnerable in our workforce?
Well, Chris, it's probably going through their minds, and I've spoken with a lot of the folks, not only the frontline crews that are in facing with customers daily, but the folks that are behind the scenes working on infrastructure within their gangs. But they all have the same concerns. The challenge with this virus is there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a deadly virus. And we all want to get past it as soon as we can. And here we are coming to work, trying to provide for our families, right? And the biggest fear is that, we don't want to hurt our families. And some of the stories they've told me, I think we all have similar things, our kids or our parents. The last thing we want to do is be bringing the virus home to them. So what we've been trying to do is get out and make sure that we listen to their concerns, that we address them as soon as possible. We've been very aggressively sanitizing not only the public-facing locations like our trains and stations and platforms, but also the shops, the yards, the vehicles that our crews use, and making sure that we provide them the proper PPE, whether it's the gloves, whether it's masks, hand sanitizers, the wipes that we're using, you name it, face shields. All of these things are important, not only to protect them, but to give them the peace of mind that they can do their jobs, and that when they go home, that they're going home safely and that their families are safe as well.
Yeah. In a second, James is going to go ahead and post up some photos that we got from one of your labor leaders of the PPEs that your employees are wearing. The PPE problem that we had as a nation, not getting them in time, you were able to come through. Are there certain departments, in your opinion, that are just doing a stand-up job ensuring that everybody in your workforce is properly cared for, getting the appropriate equipment, or is this just a problem that you're constantly dealing with, Phil?
Well, obviously there is a worldwide shortage of equipment, and I'm glad to say that in the beginning we had sufficient supplies, and from the beginning we've been looking to ramp up the ability to get the supplies. But I would say every department, including procurement, including the HR folks, our medical folks, our safety folks, the folks that are not necessarily out there publicly but are supporting the workforce. They've all stepped up, and they've been very, I'll say, aggressive and proactive with seeking out every potential vendor, seeking out every potential opportunity. And they're also managing the distribution of the materials because obviously we need to make sure that everyone who needs the equipment gets it. And we've gone the extra step of anybody who wants it, we're providing it to them. And at the same time, we will need to manage for the long haul. So we are still aggressively pursuing that. The state of New York, Governor Cuomo has done a lot with regards to leveraging, companies to change how they produce. Companies that used to produce alcohol now producing hand sanitizer, and looking to have companies start making masks and all of those things that you need to do in this type of global pandemic. But I give a lot of credit to our departments. They've been communicating with us, sharing the needs, and we've been making sure that with regular communication and daily with our labor leaders, making sure that we are listening to where the needs are and making sure we tackle them quickly. And that's not just distribution of equipment, but also getting out and meeting with the employees and answering questions. And we're doing that in a very social, distant manner to protect everybody.
Yeah.
But I think that's important because there are so many uncertainties with this, and this open lines of communication that we've been having here, I think, is going a long way to alleviating or mitigating some of these concerns.
Yeah. You're not the only MTA in the nation. And talking to your comm specialist, who's a good friend of mine, Mr. Ed Dumas, does a tremendous job at his work there. Philly has got a transportation system, DC, Chicago. Are you doing your due diligence and communicating to them? This is how we're handling it. Brothers and sisters in other parts of the country, prepare.
We have been actually having a lot of conversation. Obviously, here at MTA with our sister agencies at New York City Transit, with Metro North, but also with the other agencies, as you mentioned, New Jersey Transit. We've spoken with Amtrak. We've spoken with SEPTA. And we participate in a lot of calls with FRA where they've collaborated and brought other agencies on to discuss. And, we've unfortunately been at the forefront of this. Unfortunately, we are in the hotspot, both New York City and Long Island. And at the same time, we want to make sure that we share everything that we've been through, because we see in how the virus is spreading, and it spreads quickly and even quietly before some locations even thought that it existed. Yeah. So it's important to learn from this. And we're going to not only learn from this to get through the battle, but we're going to learn from this and use this for best practices moving forward, because we're learning different ways of doing things. And I think it is a testament to all the folks here that we're keeping an open mind, and we're moving the needle, and proud of the efforts that everyone's doing. I
can imagine just the anxiety a lot of your labor leaders have within your workforce. The revenue has dropped tremendously. I'm one of the few, Phil, that doesn't complain when I take the train, whether it's late a second or not. I know I'm spending $19 for a pretty good ride. I'm able to do some work on the train, but you're losing that from me, and you're losing that from a lot of people. The anxiety with your workforce of Am I going to have a job in the future? You've done a few things to deal with that, haven't you?
Well, we obviously the revenue is something that we've lost because of the ridership, but we're not the only company and business that is facing these economic hardships. And at the same time, we know how vital the Long Island Railroad is in good times, and we know how vital it is, obviously, during this pandemic.
Yeah.
And all of our workforce are essential right now. Our goal has been common, working with our labor leaders here. Protect the employees, protect the customer, ensure that we could run the essential service. And financial issues we'll deal with later when we get through it. But we've been working collaboratively and making sure that whatever we need to do, we find some flexibility and get it done. And that means, making sure that we're constantly talking, constantly communicating, and raising issues so we can solve them together. And,
I totally agree with you.
It goes a long way to us getting through this, and we'll deal with, how we handle future finances after we get through the pandemic.
I think that's healthy because, if you can handle this, you can handle anything. I got my hands on a document here, a letter that you put together, signed by not just by you, the big boss guy, right? But also the guys that you're signatory with, the guys and gals of your workforce who were elected union leaders. And I find that to be stand up. I asked you to share a personal story with us before we bid you adieu, about how you're doing. Give me a story of something that would make us really fall in love with all of your efforts, you yourself, sir, or everyone within your ranks. Go ahead.
Well, what I think is been so tough to handle and is the stress that everyone is facing. And the employees here at Long Island Railroad are all facing the same stresses that everyone else is across the world, quite frankly, with regards to what this virus could do to them. And you talked about it earlier, Chris, about everyone worrying about, how do we protect our family? How do we not hurt our mother or father or somebody that we know that has some of these underlying issues, because we know how deadly this can be. And, when you talk with these employees, and it's hard to put into words how important what we're doing is, and at the same time, we follow the experts of the medical experts. We follow the advice of our own physicians, and we're still going out about and doing the job that we need to do. And the folks are out there; they're supporting track work, they're doing signal work, and we're laying new concrete ties out in the Ronkonkoma branch, and we're doing state of good repair, and we're supporting all these mega projects that are still important to the railroad when we get through this. And it's important today because it's for us to run essential service reliably. We still have to do that work, and they're doing it. And when I see that, it puts so much pride into my having the opportunity to work side by side with the men and women here. But then I also see that our customers, the ones that aren't riding, say how much they miss the railroad. And I see how the folks on the trains are thanking personally the train crews as they encounter them on the trains, and thanking our folks as they see them in the stations. And it's a true testament to what New Yorkers do, what Long Islanders do. We do band together. And we're all part of the same community, and we want to get through this together. So it's really touching, and I'm blessed to be part of it. And I know we'll be able to get through it because we're all working together here, Chris.
Well said, brother. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy man, and on behalf of all of us here at the UCOMM, we just want to wish you the best, especially your workforce. We appreciate you being on with us and sharing with us everything you've done. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, the workforce is phenomenal. Thank you for giving me a chance to join the show. And I want to wish, all your listeners, and obviously all the folks across the island and New York and the country, deepest thoughts and prayers for everyone's well-being, and for those that have suffered losses, they're in my hearts, and we will get through this.
Okay.
And the Long Island Railroad is here to help.
Thank you, Phil. Godspeed, brother.
You too, Chris.
Okay,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Bye-bye.